What's going on, guys? Welcome back. And today I've got a little video for you. We're going to be talking about Minecraft and the recent update that they did to their system requirements. So for those of you who may not know, but Mojang for the first time raised Java Minecraft's system requirements for the first time in 17 years. So there's a few things I want to talk about. And let's just get into it. Now, if this is a topic that you feel very strongly about, let me know. This, I think, is ridiculous that it's gotten to this point, but that's besides the point. These are my opinions, and you have yours, and let me know yours down in the description down below. Also, give me a subscribe and a like, and I'd greatly appreciate it. But yeah, so let's get into this. So, just a couple days ago, Minecraft updated Java's system requirements. So before, you basically only needed a minimum of about 4 gigs of RAM and 2 gigs of RAM, sorry, minimum, and then 4 were recommended. And then basically just any GPU, CPU at the time, it was kind of meant for it to work on that. So with the new requirements, if you're wanting to play on like basically a fast preset, roughly about 30 FPS, you need a minimum of 8 gigs of RAM with a discrete GPU. And then 12 gigs of RAM with integrated graphics, which is crazy because I'm like, most PCs nowadays come with either 8 or 16 gigs. If you're going to be getting a 16 gig, there's probably a good chance you already either have some type of APU or GPU in there, but we won't get into the weeds of that real quick just yet. 4-core CPU. And if you want to go, 60 FPS on fancy, you need to do 16 gigs of RAM, a much more modern CPU, like a Ryzen or, an M series for if you're like on Apple, or a Core i5. A GPU with at least 6 gigs of RAM, an RTX card basically is what people are, complaining about. And yeah, so, I mean, look, I understand that the reason the changes were made was obviously because it's just outdated hardware, and technology, and I understand also that, the game it's had a lot of features added from its initial inception. And obviously older hardware will limit, the advancement of the game because, it's just not going to be able to keep up with what they want to implement in the game. But, and I'm sure a lot of it maybe also have to do with the vibrant visuals, that they're going to be bringing to Java. I think it's just people are upset because it went from basically any computer out there could run this game even at the lowest settings possible to now you basically do need a relatively decent PC to play. And it's fallen more in line with modern gaming requirements, but it doesn't change the fact that people are going to be upset. I am also upset, mainly due to its optimization. So in no certain terms am I telling you this is exactly how it is, but I will try to explain to you how the Minecraft code basically renders and processes in your computer. This is, to the best of my knowledge, there is no guarantee that it's accurate knowledge, and I could be very well wrong, but I'm going to try to explain it to you. So let's say, because when this game came out, single core and dual core CPUs were more common. And it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't quad core CPUs, weren't the go-to or the standard that it is now, So at the time, Notch, what he did to make the game more friendly to the masses, basically, to allow as many people to play it as possible, he basically made it operate on one single core. I'm not going to give you the intricacies of OpenGL and the OpenGL technology and how that stuff works because I don't know. But my understanding is the line of code comes in, you may have a dual core, quad core, octa core, however many cores you have in your CPU. My understanding is if you have when you're running Minecraft in its base form, it will run through a single core. That single core will process everything, and then you have obviously your RAM requirements, so on and so forth. Now, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because people in the community, especially in the Java modding community, have already fixed this issue. They've come out. There are tons of ways to deal with this, right? So there's Sodium, and there's what is a couple other ones I'm trying to think off the top of my head, Optifine, and a few others that have already started fixing optimization, basically allowing the other cores in your CPU to work, whether it's a dual core, quad core, octa-core. Everything in your CPU will be able to function and process all the data coming in. And that allows obviously the game to run better. It's gonna run smoother, faster, yada yada yada. So the reason people are upset is, in my opinion, more has to do with poor optimization of Minecraft. I think that's just a fair argument to really give. As for them giving these minimum requirements, I don't think it's that unreasonable. You're also talking about them, there's going to be more upgrades and features added into Minecraft. And with them pushing up the minimum requirements, they can, basically say, hey, it wasn't meant to run on your system. You need to have a system like this. And I get that. I think it's just relatively unfair to not complain about optimization. Optimization can give a lot of breathing room to these system requirements. And I think that's what we should really be thinking about. Because I'm like, in all honesty, having the recommended be 16 gigs of RAM is insane. That's a lot of RAM, especially with today's current RAM prices. Now, and like I said, I understand why they're doing it, but I think it's just not fair because it's not optimized. Java Minecraft is not optimized. Look, I don't have the greatest PC, but I mean, even my PC, I can play Call of Duty games. I can play, some of the more modern games relatively okay. But when it comes to Minecraft, I run it at 60-ish FPS if I'm lucky. And that's fast graphics settings, not a super high, render distance. And I think that's just not fair because I know my computer can handle it. Because as soon as I throw on Sodium and a couple of the performance mods, suddenly my game runs a lot better. I'm pulling 100, 120 FPS. So I think it's just unfair that we are letting them get away with not properly optimizing the game. And I understand that's a huge overhaul for a game as established as Minecraft nowadays. But I think it's just unfair to let them get away with not getting this type of criticism. Because yes, performance mods do increase your FPS. They do increase the performance of the game, but that should not be the reason why the game, it's not fair that's why the game can run the way it is. At least in my opinion, that's what I think. But, look, I'm going to give you the most straightforward and honest way to prove that it's an optimization issue. How many of you guys know that you guys can run Minecraft Java on a Android device? Probably not many. Maybe some of you do. Well, you can run Java Minecraft on a Android device. There's a community built project basically allowing you to not just play Minecraft, but play with mods. They have custom mod packs for Android devices, depending on your GPU to basically get the maximum performance out of it. And look, just to prove the point, the video you guys are watching now in the background, that is me playing on my Android tablet. So I'm playing Java Minecraft on my Android tablet, jumping around 100 FPS basically. And it's great. It runs great. It runs good. It runs more than playable. And I think the fact that we've gotten to this point shows that the developers, the studio is really lacking in the case of optimization. And it's not just Minecraft. This is an industry-wide complaint. This is an industry-wide concern. This is an industry-wide issue. Because these studios and these developers are getting away without optimizing their games. They're putting together these games without optimizing them properly, which leaves us with a worse off performance, worse off experience, unless you meet the minimum, which then means you've got to spend money to meet minimum requirements for some of these games. it's a shame that it has to be like this, and I really wish it didn't have to be, but that's currently the situation. And I think them upping their minimum requirements isn't the issue. It's the fact that the game is poorly optimized. If the game was already optimized, enough where they had no choice but to, change their system requirements, then okay, I'll give them the pass because there's nothing that can be done. But in this case, for Minecraft, they can do something. They know they can do something, but they're not doing it. And I think that's the real, sad part about it. But yeah, so if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like. Leave me your thoughts in the comments, what your thoughts on this situation is. And yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Talk to you guys later. Bye.